Specific characteristics that I realized I was carrying throughout my upbringing, throughout my childhood, and it all related back to a specific moment in my childhood that was trauma related, sexual trauma related. And I did not notice these things until I allowed some space for me to really go through it in my head. Sometimes we know something has happened in our life, and then fast forward to where we are right now, we can say, oh, we know that this has happened. But when there's certain characteristics that are coming out and we're like, why is that happening? If we just take a moment and ask ourselves, why am I acting like that? Or why am I showing up like that? If we take one moment to really just sit in with it and ask ourselves, the truth always comes out. It's in our intuition. So I took some time to really ask myself, why am I showing up like this? Why is this about? There was a few things. There was a trust thing with men that came up for me. And then in the past, I felt like I had to show up in such a sexual way to the public. And I sat in with those two ideas, and it resorted and it rooted back to that one moment in my childhood when I was exposed to sex at a very early age. And so we really dived deep into that. And so we talked about that, and I wanted to encourage the group and encourage you ladies to, whenever something like that comes up, it's always best to understand that this characteristic is coming up for a reason. Allow yourself some time to understand where that's coming from and let it go. Let go and let God, because we just need to let God take care of it. Letting it go and letting God take care of it, it really brought me awareness of what are some of the masks I've put on because of these said events in my life, right? These said things that has happened, that I've developed these characteristics about myself. What are some of the masks I've decided to resonate with up until this point in my life? And how can I let go of these masks? Because every time when I'm constantly talking to you ladies, I'm on these calls with you ladies, there's a lot of masks that I hear. And we've also talked about the ego mind and the godly mind, the difference between those two things, and asking ourselves, is this idea, is this thought, is this event, am I acting out in the ego mind, or am I acting out in the godly mind? And what mind do I want to resonate with right now? So there's some things that I can see showing up a lot of the time that where we resonate more with the ego mind. And I can understand why, because we feel like we have to constantly protect ourselves. But today's message is really to encourage you ladies to constantly create environments and constantly create spaces for yourself, so where you could take those masks off. And what you can find within taking those masks off is that there's a person within yourself that has not been able to be vulnerable. There's a version of you that where you've literally had to build up so much walls, so many restrictions, so many masks, because you've been afraid to let anyone in, right? And to this point, we've been afraid to let God in. Sometimes we have these relationships with God, and sometimes they're just so surface level because we're constantly putting a mask on. But what happens when we're able to just at least allow ourselves to take those masks off in front of God, and we're able to really see what it is that we're handling? What is it? Who are we really? Who are we truly? Before the trauma, before the ego, before all those things, who are we? And I can only imagine what that does to our nervous system when we constantly can allow ourselves to create those spaces. 2 weeks ago, that space for me was just in the shower praying to God and trying to really figure out what is showing up right now for me. Why am I showing up as a woman that doesn't want to trust a man? It was that idea as well. And I was able to create a space where I was able to bring those walls down and ask myself, where is the root? Why am I showing up that way? And once it showed up, I was able to free it. I was able to free that character. I was able to free that mask. And since then, I've been asking myself, what are some other masks that I put on that I no longer want to have to put on to the public, just in general, to myself, to my significant other? What is it that I no longer want to do? And what I also noticed too is that I'm afraid to take up space. When it comes to being in any kind of container that involves somebody else, sometimes I'm afraid to show up completely as who I am and take up space. And I know that this is also a trend within us women too, because I talked to some of my other friends and my other girls, and it sounds like that's what it is too. We're too scared to ask for more. We're too scared to show up as who we are, because in some ways we've been told that we need to ask for less. Oh, you're just too much. And that hinders us in so many ways. It literally makes us like, it takes so much life out of us when we're afraid to take up space. Imagine even in a relationship, when you're in a relationship with someone, with a significant other, and if you're afraid to take up space, can you imagine how much you're taking away from yourself if you're in that kind of container? Why am I afraid to ask for more or desire more with somebody that's supposed to be doing life with me? Why would I take that away from myself? Why does it seem like sometimes when someone is single, they're thriving, they're glowing so much more than someone who's in a relationship? That should not be the case every time. If we're, and this is not only in romantic relationships, as we were talking before, it can also be in friendships. Sometimes I find myself just holding space for others, and I don't even have, and like I said, I go into it so selfless, but it's like, why don't I expect that on the other side? Why don't I expect my friends to check on me and ask me how I'm doing and actually try to get in depth with me? Why am I not requiring that in a friendship either? It's because I'm afraid to take space. So I have to ask myself, why am I afraid to take up space? Right? So these are things that you start to realize about yourself in every relationship, in any container that you see yourself involved in. And if I want to continuously give myself some of that environment, that exact environment where I'm able to be vulnerable. Because without vulnerability, I'm not able to find out about these things about myself. And like I said, we can always say, oh, I know exactly what happened in my past. I know exactly why I'm acting like that. But are you allowing yourself to really take some time, allow your nervous system to relax, allow your just everything to just surrender, to really figure out the root, and then figure out how you're going to heal yourself through that? Because we can constantly say, oh, that's why that happens. We can constantly point our finger to that. But are we actually healing it? Because I don't want us to walk around life and continuously walk on this planet and start just blaming things, start victimizing ourselves. Oh, that's why this happens. But what are we actually doing about it? And the way we can actually heal those things, setting up that environment for ourselves, setting up that ecosystem within ourselves to be able to heal it. Because we don't need to be walking around with all these traumas, all these restrictions, all these limitations, all these masks. It helps nobody. And some of the things that I actually wrote in my notes too is that life does not have to be that complicated. We make it more complicated when we constantly put these limitations and we constantly put these masks on. That's when life seems to be so much more harder and we hold on so much more heavier because we're holding on to the ego mind. But if we literally release it all and we just decide to just be ourselves and decide that we don't want to continuously show up as somebody else, then life becomes so much more easy and so much more simple. And I've been learning that because now I'm slowly creating an environment where life becomes more simple. And at first, of course, I didn't allow myself to be immersed in that because I didn't know what that felt like, right? I didn't know what it felt like to be okay with not working every day. In my mind, I felt like I had to make $1 every day. But I tend to understand that I don't constantly have to keep proving to the world and to myself and to everyone around me that I'm just this person that knows how to generate X amount of dollars. I'm this businesswoman. I'm this entrepreneur. That's cool. That's beautiful. I love that part of me. But what other parts of me do I want to develop? I want to be able to develop a more feminine essence about me. I've never been able to build that up. And now at this, Charity said, at this ripe age of 31, I want to be able to build on that. Because I don't want to consistently carry this masculine essence till I'm 90. What is that going to do for me? What am I going to be able to say about my life? Yes, thank you, God, I've been able to build generational wealth. I've been able to do X, Y, and Z for my family and for myself. But what other parts of me did I forget to build? What other parts of me did I forget about that God has literally created for me? We are women. We carry these divine characteristics about us. Why did we forget to build on that? I don't want to do that. I want to be able to build on that too. Because in fact, we can do it all. We could be able to generate X amount of money, and we're able to also be very feminine while doing it. So that goes back to just asking ourselves, what masks have we put up to the world, to ourselves, even to God, that we need to let go of in order to continue to our next chapter, to continue to our next level. And that's it for you ladies. That was the message for today. And I'm so excited to hear what your thoughts are on this topic, and even hear about maybe some masks that tend to realize now as we're having this conversation, what kind of masks do I find myself putting up for other people, in front of God, that I want to just let go of, that I feel like it's like literally the one thing that feels so restrictive, so heavy, that I know if I let it go, that things would just seem more simple, feel so much more easy. In today's society, it seems like AI is taking over everything. They can potentially take our jobs or whatever, right? But what's so beautiful about today's time is that because everything is so generated and operating in such a masculine sense, that everything that is going to require an actual human being, what we actually carry as specifically women, is going to be valued so much higher now. Imagine for example, my meal prep business is valued so much more higher because I'm offering my clients meals and energy and in a culture that is genuine to who I am. People buy into that. So just like Jamadi's juices, people are able to buy into her juices. They're not just only buying into a juice. They're buying into the recipe she was able to create because her intuition showed that these ingredients were the ingredients she should put in a bottle. And same for Cheryl, same for Charity. You ladies have these feminine attributes that will be valued higher in today's market, higher in today's society, because they are genuine to you. They're not genuine to AI. They're not genuine to a big corporation. They are literally coming from you and your intuition, and people are going to buy into that more now. So there's a lot of ways to look at life, and I want to continuously decide to choose to buy into a perspective that benefits me, right? A perspective that doesn't go against me. Because for the longest, in a way, we've continuously bought into a story where it's like, well, women are going to get the short end of the stick always. I don't want to do that anymore. We're not doing that. I had a conversation with so I'm taking coaching calls now, which I freaking love. I'm doing 101 coaching calls, and I'm starting up that business right now. Slowly but surely, we'll definitely get there on a more mainstream level. I'm getting my website built and my logo made this week. But I was on a call, and that's one thing that I kept telling her, and I'm telling you ladies, I always tell you ladies, we don't have to subscribe to the sad girl narrative. We don't have to constantly subscribe to the storyline that our life, that's just what it is. Like, that's just what my life is made up to be. Other people get to be happy. Other people get to have a happy family, a happy perspective. But that's just not meant for me because of where I come from, because of what I've experienced. No, we're not subscribing to that anymore. We are in control of every part of our lives. We don't have to subscribe to that narrative where it's like, that's just how it is. Oh, my family they just didn't do it. They didn't carry me out through this generation, so I'm just not going to be happy in this lifetime. That doesn't need to be us. So that's a majority of the message that I constantly that I was telling one of my girls during our coaching call, because I just found that without her even saying it, I even picked it up on her energy, that she was constantly, in a way, choosing the victim narrative. And all we need to understand is that we have the power to get ourselves out of that. At any given moment, we're able to take the power back. We don't have to give up our power in any way, shape, or form. We don't have to give it to anybody.